Warning, this video might make you a better deer hunter. Whether it does or not depends on if you put the information to use. At the end of the day, that is my goal, to help you become a better deer hunter. Let's get into it.
Well, that's exactly what we want him to do. I just blew that shot. Hey guys, welcome back to Whitetail Affinity. In today's video, we're going to go through one of the most important aspects of deer hunting, and that's blood trailing or tracking the animal after the shot. I'm going to break it down into not just blood trailing and tracking, but also blood trailing based on shot placement, different shot scenarios you can encounter after the shot, whether you're tracking in the daylight or at night, using a dog tracker, and a little bit about deer anatomy as well. All right guys, before we get started, if you guys didn't check out the last video that I did on shot placement, you should definitely do that before watching this one. I highly recommend that you check that one out. That one's a perfect prelude to this video, what this video is going to be about. That one was about shot placement and what to expect based on where your arrow or bullet impacts the animal. And this video is going to be on blood trailing and tracking after the shot. So if you didn't check that out, definitely go do that. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Now the tracking process begins as soon as you touch that release and send that arrow or squeeze that trigger and send that bullet towards the animal. A lot of people think that it only applies when you're on the ground, actually finding blood and looking for evidence of where the animal went and actively tracking the deer, but that couldn't be further from the truth. As soon as you send that bullet or arrow, that's when the tracking process begins, and these are the things that you're going to have to pay attention to before you even start tracking or blood trailing. With a bow, you want to watch where the arrow went as best you can into the animal, and you want to listen to what it sounded like. Was it a loud crack? Was it a hollow thump? Did it make no sound at all? These are a few things that you have to pay attention to that are crucial in telling you what kind of shot you just made on that animal and what blood trail, what kind of a track job to expect from there. With a gun, it's a little more difficult to hear the impact. Sometimes you do hear it, but it's harder to tell, mostly because the animal is a lot further away in most cases. That's when you have to pay attention to the body language of the deer. That will tell you what to expect after taking a shot with a gun. So after paying close attention to where the arrow went into the animal, or after you shoot with a gun, you want to really pay attention to the body language of the animal. Does it go on a straight death run as fast as it can with no regard to direction or anything like that? Does it bound away with its tail up? Does it run a short distance and then stop and look around and then start walking slowly? Does it hunch up? All these cues can help tell you what to expect as far as a blood trail and where you just shot that animal. A lot of deer will mule kick with their back legs up in the air. Some of them will rear up on their hind legs and put their front legs up in the air. Sometimes they might drop right in their tracks, or they might drop in their tracks and then get up and run. So all these different body language cues can help you develop a plan of how to proceed next and as far as your blood trailing and what to expect as far as a track goes. Another thing to pay attention to is what its tail does. A mortally wounded deer a lot of times will run with its tail down, or even flickering up and down. A deer that bounds away with its tail up or runs away with its tail up usually indicates that the deer wasn't hit as well as you might have thought or hoped for. So watching what its tail does is another key indicator of what to expect as far as how mortally wounded that deer is and how you can expect your track job to be after the shot. So these are all things you have to pay attention to. As soon as you release the arrow or fire the bullet, all these things, the body language, can really help you in determining what to expect next. So now that you've taken the shot, you've tried your best to see where the impact was on the animal. You watched what its body language did on impact, whether it kicked, what kind of sound it made. You've watched the body language of the deer as it was running away. You watched how it ran, what it did as it was running. Was it stumbling? Was its tail up? You've watched its tail. What is its tail up? Is it down? Is it flickering up and down? After all these things that you've watched, as that deer is running away, you want to pick out the last thing that you see it go by. You want to pick out some sort of landmark, whether it's a tree, a shrub, a bush, a bare spot in the dirt on the ground, a fence post. It doesn't matter what it is. You want to pick out something, whatever the last thing that you have in your mind of that deer running by, as another guide to help you to aid in tracking. You might get down and there might not be any blood. There might not be leaves kicked up or dirt turned over that could help you, but that last landmark is very important for you to pick out in your mind. So there's a lot of things to do as soon as you release the arrow or fire the gun. And combining all these things can help you in the next steps of the process. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you got to pay attention to all this stuff and why it's so important that you do after you take a shot. Your body's going to be flooded with adrenaline. You've just taken a shot on an animal. If you're anything like me, the sight of a fawn gets you excited coming in. So your mind can play tricks on you during this whole process. And even though it might not seem important, every little detail is significant and can help you in finding that animal. The reason why you pay attention to where the arrow impacts and the body language and how it runs and how its tail, what its tail is doing, where the deer is headed, all these things, the last landmark, all these things come into play, because if you forget one detail, this other detail might help you. You might remember that part of it versus the other part more or better. And so to really put a whole picture together to help you find this animal, you really have to pay attention to all these things, and your mind is the biggest culprit of that. Like I said, your brain isn't going to be functioning right. Your adrenaline, everything, you're shaking. And not to mention, things look a lot different when you get down out, especially out of a tree. Things look way different on the ground than they do up in the air. So that last landmark that deer ran by, you might get down out of your tree and not even be able to find it from the ground. So there's a lot of reasons why this stuff's important, and before you even start your track job. And so you really got to pay attention to this stuff, guys. It'll really help you out. It'll really decrease the chances that you're going to lose this animal if you don't have a favorable blood trail to begin with, or signs of what happened, where it went, how the shot was. You know, if you don't know where you hit the animal, but for whatever reason, some of these details can help you determine how you hit the animal, how vitally it's hit, where it's going, and all that. So it's really important. So in order to try to make this video as detailed as possible and to help you guys identify different blood trails easier, as well as to make this video more insightful and helpful and all that, I've made my own version of fake blood based on 4 different types of shot scenarios. What I think are the 4 most common types of blood that you're going to encounter while tracking deer. They're not perfect. I've tried my best to get them as close color-wise and consistency as what you can expect out in the woods. But I think for the purposes of this video, they're going to be close enough for you guys to maybe learn something today and help you guys out on your next blood trail. So I'm going to use these in all the shot scenarios, and we're going to start out with heart and arterial shots. Okay guys, the first blood trailing scenario we're going to go through is a heart or arterial shot. And this shot is anything obviously in the heart or any of the arteries that are in the front shoulders, high up in the spine area, or back here in the hams. There's some big arteries back here as well. Now heart shots are probably they might have a thumping sound when you shoot a deer in the heart. They might have no sound at all. It all depends on a lot of factors, your broadhead, the angle of the animal, all kinds of stuff, whether it hits a rib. So usually there's a thump, a thud or a thump. Sometimes I've shot deer with no sound when you hit them in the heart. As far as the next shot goes, it could be the same thing, a thump sound or no sound at all. And again, if you watch the shot placement video, I'd never recommend shooting a deer in the neck with a bow. Gun, a little different story. As far as the hams go back here, you might have a thud or a hollow thump, but a lot of times it's not going to be, there's not really going to be any sound when the arrow or bullet, but especially arrows, hit in the hams because of just the preponderance of muscle tissue back there. It's just going to go in, and a lot of times there's no sound. So next thing to pay attention to with a heart shot or arterial shot is how the deer runs away. A lot of times a heart shot deer will run, I call it a death run. It's just a full bore run. There's really no regard to where they're going. Their tail's usually down, and they're just trying to get out of there as fast as they can. There's really no rhyme or reason to what they're doing, and so that's a good indicator of a good heart shot. Now a shoulder shot deer, if you hit the artery up in here, a shoulder shot deer could be stumbling, could be on its brisket pushing its way. If you've broken both shoulders, that's a possibility as well. A lot of times with a shoulder shot, you're going to hear a loud crack, especially with an arrow. If you hit these bones up in here, it's going to be a loud crack. So that's another good indicator that you hit some sort of solid bone. With a ham shot, the deer is probably going to, it could be stumbling. It could run away fully on a death run. It could run away bounding. I've seen a lot of different scenarios with a ham shot, and in any of them, it's not good unless you hit those arteries. So it's best to stay away from that and stay up in here, as I also said in the shot placement video. With heart and arterial shots, usually you're gonna have good blood. There's gonna be a lot of sprays, a lot of spatters, because as the heart's pumping, as that deer's running, every pump of the heart, that's shooting out more blood. So as long as you got some sort of arterial or heart shot hit, whether it's a pass through or not, you're probably gonna have a pretty decent blood trail. The deer will be dead relatively quickly, even with a bad shot back here or up here. Usually they are dead within 2 minutes or about 100 yards, especially on a heart shot. They can live longer if you hit in these areas, but a straight heart shot will kill the deer very quickly. In any event, the best thing to do is to wait for about an hour before you start tracking, and that just gives you time to calm down, gather your stuff out of the tree, get together mentally, replay the shot, make sure that you've got everything, all your T's crossed and I's dotted with that. Make sure that that's where you think you hit the animal, and that'll give you time to do that. This is kind of a sample here of what your arrow could look like with a heart shot deer. It's going to have bright red blood on it. This blood is not, like I said, it's not perfect. I ran out of red food coloring, so making this blood, so usually it's a little deeper red than what this is, but again, this is what you can expect, a good indicator, especially with white veins like that. Bright red blood and a good blood trail. So a heart shot, definitely one to go for. Okay guys, here's a little sample track of what a heart shot deer might look like as far as a blood trail. You're usually going to have good blood, pretty easy to follow. A lot of times there's going to be blood up on trees as it sprays out, as the animal's running. You might have short gaps in the blood because of the deer running. A lot of times you'll find huge splotches like this. Okay guys, the next shot scenario you might find yourself in with a blood trail is the long shot. And long shots are really good shots. They're one of the most effective ones. With these shots, you might not hear anything if you don't hit any bone. If your arrow sneaks through on both sides, doesn't hit any bone, you might not hear a loud crack. Sometimes you will hear a crack if you hit those rib bones. Sometimes it might just be a thud. You know, if you go in between rib bones on this side and hit one on the other side, it might just sound like a thud versus a crack or anything else. Long shot deer can sometimes do a death run as they take off. They can run with their full sprint, tail down, and a lot similar to a heart shot deer. Other times they might bound away and not look as injured. I've seen it both ways. The blood that you can expect is going to be a pinkish red blood with bubbles in it. It's not going to be very deep red or real crimson like a heart shot. It's going to be more pinkish color with a lot of bubbles. A lot of times with long shot deer, if you are in a tree stand and you hit the deer high and your arrow doesn't go all the way through, it doesn't have an exit, the blood trail can be a lot more sparse because the blood's coming out higher in the animal. And if you don't hit any arteries with that, then you're not going to have the sprays and the splatters like a heart shot or arterial hit deer. But in any case, the long shot deer is going to be dead very quickly, usually within 2 minutes or 100 yards, just like a heart shot. And the track job is pretty decent usually. There's usually good blood. A lot of it, like I said, depends on pass-throughs and all that and height of the shot, but usually you can expect a good blood trail with a long shot deer. And again, best to wait, even though they're going to be dead pretty quickly in a short period of time, it's best to wait that hour just to, again, gather your thoughts, rethink everything through, make sure you can replay that scenario in your head and make sure everything went as you planned. So guys, when you find your arrow, this might be what you can expect. Pink blood or some variation of it. You could have a deeper red on it as well if you connected with liver, heart, other other organs, but a straight long shot is going to have pinkish red blood with a lot of bubbles in it. Like I said, I can't imitate the bubbles here, but they're going to have bubbles. There's going to be bubbles in it, and so this right here is a good indication of a long shot. All right, guys, so here's some long blood. This is what you can expect after shooting a deer in the lungs. Blotches like this. And again, this blood's not perfect. A lot of times you're going to have bubbles all in these blood splotches. It's going to be a lot of bubbles in it from the lungs, all the oxygen and air being expelled with the blood. So again, usually a very easy track to follow. Okay guys, the next shot scenario you might find yourself in is a liver shot. And a liver shot, it can sound like a loud crack. If you hit any bones in the ribs, it can sound like a thud. It can sound like a hollow thump. A liver shot deer might bound away and then stop. It might sprint a short distance and then stop. But usually a liver shot deer will run a short distance and then it'll slow down or stop and then slowly walk away. And this is one of the most important things that you need to look for when you have a liver shot deer. A liver shot deer is going to have dark red blood and leave a dark red blood trail. And a lot of that blood is going to depend on if you hit any other organs or if it was a straight liver shot. And a liver shot deer can live a long time. It's best to wait at least 6 hours to start tracking a liver shot deer if you know that you hit it in the liver, because the deer can live a long time. And a lot of times they will go a short distance and bed down and won't go very far. And if you start tracking it too soon, you're going to push that animal. It's going to get a burst of adrenaline, and it's going to make your track job way harder and possibly even push the animal off your property. We all know how that can go sometimes. So it's best to wait before you start tracking. Give that animal enough time to die. After hitting a deer in the liver, this is somewhat what you can expect to find on your arrow. A dark, real deep, almost purple blood. And again, that can vary depending on what other organs you hit with the liver, but that right there is a real good indicator of a liver shot deer. There might even be some grittiness to it. I don't know if you can see that there, but I tried my best to make it look as real as possible, but a lot of times there's a grittiness almost to a liver shot animal, and so that's what you could expect. So let's check out the blood trail left from a liver shot deer. Okay guys, a liver shot deer isn't going to bleed as good as a heart or lung shot deer. You're going to have that deep red blood on the leaves, and it's going to be more spotty. It's going to drip more than it's going to spray. You might get some spots here and there that are more of a, like if the animal stopped, you might have a puddle, something like this. But most of the track is going to be pretty sparse blood, and there's probably going to be some large gaps from the one spot to the next. So guys, all in all, a liver shot deer will die. It is a fatal hit, but it's just going to take a lot more time, and the blood trail is going to be a little more challenging to deal with than a heart or lung shot deer. Okay guys, the next blood trail we're going to talk about is a gut shot. And gut shot deer is probably not going to sound like much when you hit it. The sound, it might have a hollow thump, or there may be no sound at all. There aren't any bones in the guts. There are very minimal muscles, so a lot of times if you hit the gut, you might hear that, I guess, explosion inside the animal, if you will. That's where that hollow thump will come from, of it busting that gut sac, and that might be a sound that you hear, or you hear no sound at all. A lot of times a gut shot animal will hunch up, so when you shoot it, the animal will hunch in its midsection like it just got kicked in the stomach, and after that it might run a short way. It might run with its tail up, it might bound away, but usually they'll run a short distance and then stop, or they might even just walk off to begin with. They're hurting. A gut shot is a real painful shot for a deer. Obviously that's why we never want to intentionally take that shot, but usually they'll run a short distance, and just like a liver shot, they'll either bed down or they'll slowly walk away. And usually a gut shot deer will have its tail to start with, its tail might be up, and then when it stops, it'll put it down. But usually, a gut shot animal will have its tail down, and it'll flicker. And when it flickers like that, you know that animal's in pain, and so that's a telltale sign and something to watch for. The blood trail on a gut shot deer is going to be very sparse or non-existent. It's going to be a drip here or there. There's not any major arteries or cardiovascular systems back here that are going to be exerting a lot of blood. So you might get a drop here and there. You might also find green and brown matter on the ground, or as well as on your arrow. And a gut shot deer, you need to wait at least 10 hours before taking up the track on that animal, because a gut shot deer will live a long time and they're going to die a slow, painful death. But usually, like I said, they will not go very far before they bed down because they're in so much pain. And so it's best to wait 10 hours. And just like a liver shot deer, if you pursue that animal too soon, again, it can get a burst of adrenaline and it can run quite a long ways, hundreds of yards, and with no blood trail to begin with, or barely any, you just run the risk of losing that animal too much, or pushing it onto someone else's property. So guys, with a gut shot deer, when you find your arrow, it may look something like this. It's probably going to have gut matter. I actually put some corn and some spinach in a blender, blended it up to make this blood for this video. But you're going to have, and it could be a different variations, different shades of green or brown, depending on what you hit, what the arrow went through. But a lot of times you're going to find that stomach matter on your arrow or on the ground or both during a gut shot track job. So let's take a look at what a gut shot track job might look like as far as the blood trail goes. So guys, this is what you might expect from a gut shot deer. You may have some blood, some drops of bright red blood from superficial damage to the animal, but a lot of times you're going to have that green or darkish brown, some sort of variation of that, more than a deeper red or a brighter red. You may have stomach matter on the ground, but it's just going to be drops. A lot of times a gut shot deer is just going to leave drops of blood because the animal's not moving very quickly, so the blood's just dripping off its fur onto the ground. So with no arterial damage, with no other major organs hit, there's not going to be a very good blood trail. So guys, again, a gut shot deer will die 100% of the time. It's just going to take a lot more time, and the track job is going to be a lot more difficult because of the lack of blood and how long the animal takes to die. But as long as you don't push that animal, and as long as you give it enough time, the recovery rates are very good. All right guys, for the tracking portion of this video, I'm going to be on dad duty. I've got my daughter Sutton here. My wife is out getting her some much needed rest and getting her nails done. Being 9 months pregnant and softball 5 to 7 days a week, she needs a little time to herself, so she's going to be my little helper for this portion of the video. So after the shot, after you guys watch what the deer did, try to see where your arrow went in the deer, after you watch where it ran and how it acted and all those body language cues that you're paying attention to, the next thing to do is get down and go to the point of impact of where the deer was standing when you shot it. First thing you want to do is try to find the impact site, and this is another reason why it's so important to pay attention while you're up in the tree or when you take the shot, because you could be 5 to 10 yards off when you get down on the ground and get over to where you think you hit the deer. It's happened to me before, but try to find that impact site. Look for your arrow. If you find your arrow, inspect it and see what kind of blood is on it. If there's any gut matter, dark blood, bright red, pink, frothy blood, that'll tell you a lot about the hit and what organs you hit when you shot the animal. So if you can't find the arrow, you want to try to find some blood. And if you can't find blood right off the bat, you want to at least try to find some dirt, kicked up leaves, indicating where that animal went. So if you get down to the impact site and you don't find your arrow, you don't find any blood, there's no evidence of kicked up leaves or dirt, any sign like that, next thing you want to do is go to that last site landmark, and where that animal passed by that tree or that stump or whatever that last thing is that you have it burned into your mind about where it was the last time you saw it. You want to go to that point. Now this is only if you don't find blood. If there is blood, you definitely want to follow that blood trail. But if you don't have blood, that last site landmark will be basically your starting point at that point. Now throughout the whole tracking process, you want to take your time, go slow, keep constantly scanning ahead, watching for that animal in case it isn't dead. You want to really pay attention to any detail that you can pick up. So take your time, go slow. There's no sense in rushing it. Rushing it will only confuse you more, make you lose track of things quicker. So take your time, track slowly, and pay attention to every detail. Now, as you're going along tracking, it's a really good idea to use a few tools that will help you keep that track in order. And a couple of the most important things that I always have in my bag are TP and baby wipes. Now, for obvious reasons, I have them in my bag at all times, regardless of whether I'm planning on shooting an animal or not. But these really come in handy when you're tracking an animal. Not only are they biodegradable, but they're very visible when you are tracking, and especially at night, it gives you a sight line of the path that animal is taking. So if you turn around and look behind you and you can see the toilet paper going through the woods, hanging up in the tree limbs, you can kind of get a direction, a general guideline of the route that animal is taking. And it's really easy to see. Like I said, biodegradable. So these two right here, always have them in my pack. When I'm tracking using toilet paper or wipes, I'm usually leaving a piece in a tree every 15 to 20 yards if I have good blood. And that's going to give me that sight line that I want to look back on and see what way the deer went and what path it's looking like it's going to. If it's thicker areas, you can do 5 or 10 yards if you have to, whatever works for you. But the main thing is to space it out to where you can at least see the line of where you've come from, and that's going to definitely help you out a lot. Now there's a ton of options as well. As if you don't have TP or baby wipes, there's a ton of other options you can use to at least mark last blood. Even if you don't have a path laid out through the woods of where you've come from, you can use your hat. I've used a headlamp before. I usually tie a headlamp either hanging up in a limb or tie it around a tree in some fashion that when you turn it on, it's pretty easy to see at night, and at least you'll know where you're at as far as last blood. Good orange hat. You can hang up your vest. And I've also used flashlights, just normal flashlights. Prop it up against the tree and it'll shine, at least light up that area. At least you can find that last blood. It's very easy to do in the dark, losing last blood. So you want to have something to mark that last blood, especially at night, like I said. In the daylight, like I said, toilet paper, hat, a glove. You could use really anything that you can hang up in a tree to at least mark that last blood, or put on the ground that's visible from 40 or 50 yards away through the woods. Another great tool to use while you're tracking is most guys have the Onyx app or Hunt Stand or some sort of app on their phone, a hunting app for maps and topographical stuff and whatnot. But most of those apps have a tracking feature on them that you can start a track. So if you are using a phone if you are using those apps, you can start a track as soon as you find first blood or as soon as you leave your tree stand, however you want to do it. But that's another option. That really helps to be able to go back, especially if you're coming back, if you're tracking at night and then you stop and then you come back in the daylight. That is a really good helpful tool to get you back to the last point where you lost blood. But another reason why I carry all this stuff with me, or at least use something to mark last blood, or try to keep a track with toilet paper, what have you, is because we all know stuff can happen with technology. Your phone might die, you might drop it in some water, anything could happen. So it's a nice tool to have, but I wouldn't rely on it 100% because of those reasons. And a compass is another great thing to have as well, especially when you get into some of these swamps and everything looks the same, especially at night. So it's really easy to get turned around. And I've been on tracks before where I thought I was heading north and I ended up coming out on a road way west of where I was. So it's really easy to get turned around. So a compass is another good idea. But the tracking tool on the apps is a really good feature and something to definitely do while you're tracking your deer. Now let's say you're tracking along and you're doing great, there's good blood, lots of sign left by the animal, and all of a sudden it stops. I've been on countless tracks of blood trails and tracks of wounded animals that I've had great blood, and then all of a sudden it just stops for whatever reason. There's a couple things to do in this situation. And the first thing I always do when I lose blood is I get down at last blood, and I get down at the deer's level. I squat down on the ground and I look around through the woods and try to pick a couple, one or two or four of the best routes, or and the best idea of what direction I think that animal might have taken. And this has helped me as far as just putting myself kind of at the, like I said, at the deer's level. What path would I take if I was trying to get out of here as fast as I could and away from danger? And a lot of times that helps you eliminate some spots. You might look down one path, and there might be a log laying down where that deer couldn't get over it, around it, whatever, so they had to go a different route. It could be a real thick tangle of some brush or a fence. It could be many different things, but getting down at that deer's level and looking and trying to see what direction it took can really help you in determining what way to pursue as far as what direction to go try to search for more blood. And another thing is you want to try to look for kicked up leaves, dirt kicked up, fresh leaves overturned, any disturbances that you wouldn't normally see. And a lot of times they'll leave clues like that aside from blood that'll help you say, okay, this is the way that deer went. The next thing I always consider when I lose blood, and after I've looked and seen what direction I think that deer might have taken, is I always consider the lay of the land. So a wounded deer is generally going to head for water or the thickest part of the property or the area that is close enough to get to. I've got a couple stories about, especially about water. You always hear guys, or I always hear guys saying, deer head for water when they're wounded. And it's true. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. The first story that I want to share is this is probably 15 years ago, 18 years ago now. It's quite a while ago. I shot a 5-point. He come down the ridge, stopped at 18 yards. I shot him. I thought I hit him perfectly. And what I think happened is I only clipped one lung. But that deer, the arrow disappeared. I never found the arrow. But I tracked blood all the way back up the ridge, all the way probably 400 yards behind my grandparents' house down to the river bottom. And that's where I lost blood. And I looked on the other side, tried to find that animal all day, the rest of that day, and I never did find it. And about 2 weeks later, my grandpa was going down the road to a friend's house, and another neighbor was at his friend's house, and that they were talking, and that neighbor said, yeah, I found a small buck down by the river. Said it had a real expensive arrow in it and all this. And that deer had hit the river and stayed in that river, or either got in the river and stayed in it for whatever reason, or it got to the river and died in it. And that deer floated down almost a mile down the river to that guy's property, and he found it. So I don't know if the deer was trying to cross that water or not. I don't know what organs I hit, if it was a single lung. I don't know what happened, but I know that deer headed for water either way. It didn't go up on the Oak Ridge and out into the Oak Flats where there's just open hardwoods. It didn't come back across the road and go head into the swamp. It headed to that river bottom where there's a lot of thick bedding. And I think that mortally wounded deer, or even deer that aren't mortally wounded, they head for water. I mean, I think their bodies are probably creating a fever. They probably have a fever from being wounded. Their body's trying to fight the wound and everything that's going on in their system. And I think that deer naturally gravitate towards water when they're wounded. So the next story that I have is, this was about 7 or 8 years ago now. A buddy of mine and I were down at my grandpa's hunting next to the river, and it was rifle season. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden a splash happened in the river. And I looked down, and about 30 yards upriver from us, I saw a deer go about, 10 or 15 feet into the river, and then it circled back to the bank. And I had my gun up, I had it ready, and it never come up off that bank back from the river. And long story short, I told my buddy, I said, this is going to sound crazy, but let's get out of the blind and go down the riverbank and see if we can see this deer. And we did. Got down to the edge of the river, and sure enough, there was a small 5-point, another 5-point laying there bedded on the side of the riverbank. And this wasn't just a nice sloped bank. I mean, this was like a little cliff off the side of that river. And he was just bedded there on the bank next to the water. And so my friend shot him. And when we recovered that animal and got him up off the bank onto the higher ground, um, he had been shot through the front shoulder, but low. It took out that most of his bottom of his one leg, and it was lodged in the opposite leg. When we skinned him out, we actually found the bullet. So that animal, and he had been wounded for a while because a lot of the meat, he stunk. The meat was pretty green, starting to rot and stuff, and so that animal had ran around like that for a while, but for some reason he came to that river bottom. So the point of all this is, if you guys have a wounded deer that you're trying to track and you can't find it, think about the lay of the land and where's the nearest water source, because a lot of times these deer will seek out that water. And like I said, whether it's to cool them down from a fever, or if it just helps the wound with that cold water on it, whatever the reason is, they seem to head toward it. So it's something to definitely remember. A couple other things are thick areas. A lot of times cattail marshes, and you'll also find that a lot of these areas are combined with water. They're in conjunction with water, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But cattail marshes, thick cedar swamps and pine swamps. It could be a overgrown Christmas tree farm. It could be a cornfield. It could be just a thick wooded area on your property, a bunch of tag alders or something. A lot of times those deer will go to those thick areas if there's not water around, or like I said, there might be water with it, but they'll go to those thick areas because of trying to escape danger. And so if you're tracking, you lose the blood trail, you don't know what way, you can't find a path that it took, check water and check the thickest areas around your properties or around where you're hunting next. So I hope you find all that helpful, guys. A couple last things about the actual track itself. In almost every situation, it's best to wait till daylight if you can. If you don't have a good blood trail to begin with, or if you lose blood, the best thing you can do is probably back out, come back in daylight. Everything's going to look different. You're going to be able to see farther. Everything about it's just going to be a better experience for you. So try to wait for daylight if you lose blood or don't have a favorable blood trail, and that's definitely going to help you out. And last couple things is try to carry extra batteries, especially if you know you're coming back. If you're leaving and then coming back, bring extra batteries for you, for your flashlights, your headlamps, your phone, anything you can to help you out, especially at night. So keep those batteries and a compass. Those are probably the two extra things that you should probably have on every blood trail or track to help you out. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is the technique that I use when I'm tracking deer, especially when I lose blood, can't find the animal. I'm going to show you what I do and how I do it to have the best possible outcome in finding that deer. Hey guys, if you're still watching, I really appreciate it. I know your time's valuable, and if you're still watching my ugly mug spew all this stuff, and you must be gaining some value of some sort, or at least not tired of me yet. So if you're getting anything out of this video, please like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I don't know which side it's on. I think it's on this side. Smash that thing, share this video with some friends, and I really appreciate you guys, as always, for being here with me. Okay guys, now that I've given you a couple of examples of what to think about when you do lose blood, where to go next, and what to do as far as getting down at the deer's level, I want to show you on here on the whiteboard kind of my process once I get to that point as far as losing blood, and when I get down at the deer's level, what I'm looking for, and what I do next. So it's best to do this alone. If you have help, it's best to bring help if you can, but only to assist you with last blood and maybe dragging the deer if you find it. As far as tracking goes, you don't want to have 2 or 3 people trying to find blood all at the same time, because there's a couple reasons. One, a lot of things can happen as far as kicking up leaves that might have blood on them that they didn't see. You can mess up the track that way. If you plan on calling in a dog, if you can't find the animal, that will also completely destroy the scent trail for the dog to follow. It'll confuse the dog. So it's best to do it alone. Leave your help back at last blood. Exhaust all your tracking efforts by yourself first, and then at the end, if you decide not to use a dog, bring everybody in to try to grid search and all that, or to help you get the deer out. But as far as tracking goes, try to do it alone. Leave your people at last blood. That'll be the best way they can help you at this point. So what you're going to do, if you come to your last blood and then you lose blood, you're going to get down to that deer's level, look around, and try to pick the best route that you think it went. And it might look something like this. You've got blood all the way to this point. Right here's last blood. You've kind of searched in this area a little bit, and you haven't found any more blood. So the next thing you want to do is pick a path. Pick all the paths that you can see that you think the deer might have taken. Now, this right here, there might be a deadfall here. There might be an overturned fallen tree that has its root ball overturned that the deer couldn't go through, obviously. So it would have had to have gone around that. Same thing here. It could be some thick brush, thick saplings. This could be a fence. The fence could have a gap in it. So these three might not be here, but the fence coming across here, that deer could have jumped the fence or went through the fence in this scenario, but couldn't have gone another direction. So it could be any number of different situations, but you want to look for the path that the deer would have taken. And so you start at last blood, get down at their level, and you're looking, and you say, okay, here's a path that they could have taken here, here, and here. And then you start walking down those paths. And you go about, pick a path, go about 20 yards up the path, looking for blood. Go slow, take your time, scan, do your best to see the most sign on any given path. But go about 20 yards, stop, scan the area, turn around, come back. Do the same thing on the next one. Scan out here. If you haven't found blood, just keep doing that on every path. And a lot of times you'll go, the deer might stop bleeding for some reason. It might have started running faster. There might be some reason why you lost blood here. But if you pick a path and go down it, you may find it out here. So doing this straight out and straight back on every one is going to be the best way to do that so that you don't mess up the scent trail as best you can. Now, if I've walked every path that I think the deer might have taken and I still can't find any blood, what I do next is something that I call arcing. You've probably heard of gridding in the past. That's where you just grid search an area, back and forth in some manner. But I call this arcing, and I think that this is a better technique to use as far as trying to find next blood, because you're not going to mess up the scent trail of the animal by just zigzagging all around and trying to find blood. If you end up calling in a dog, this is the biggest reason why I do it this way, because if you do end up calling in a dog, that dog is is following that scent trail, and if you're zigzagging all around, you're dragging scent all over. You might have crossed that scent where the deer ran, and now you're taking that scent all over and zigzagging, so you're going to confuse that animal. The dog's not going to be able to find it as easily. So it's best to do it the way I'm showing you here. And like I said, I call it arcing. Might be a new concept for you, which hopefully it helps, but this is how I do it. So I go to last blood and I imagine a line right here, and I call it arcing because you're gonna arc in a circle, a half circle like that. So you're gonna go straight out from last blood, and the reason why I go straight out, and if you haven't found blood out here, that deer, a lot of times, we've all heard of deer circling back around, and a lot of times you'll be tracking an animal, and then you'll end up back by your tree stand, or you'll end up back over by your truck, or you've heard stories of guys doing that. A lot of times deer will circle back around to where they were hit or near it. So the reason I do this way, I come here to last blood, and I'm gonna walk straight out about 30 yards, and then I'm going to arc all the way around like this. And then I'm going to come straight back to the last blood. Now hopefully once you do this, you're going to find blood out here somewhere, but that deer could have completely turned and went this way and started circling, and you might have missed it on one of these paths. So that deer could have come out here, drop back around. So when you do it this way, you're going to eventually run into that deer if it did start circling back around. Now the reason I go 30 yards out is because you've already went 20 yards here. So you want to go 20 here on these paths, go back to last blood, start arcing, go out 30. Now you're looking at the 5 to 10 yards that you've got between your last points of contact here and another 5 to 10 yards on this side of it. And so you're covering back to where you stopped before, and you're covering 5 to 10 yards of new ground that you could find blood at. Now I do this in 10-yard increments. Like I said, it takes a long time, so it's not an easy task, but it can be worth it. You know, you could run into blood eventually. So I come out here and I go another 10 yards all the way around, and then back to last blood. So I do that in 10-yard increments all the way to, if you can do it to 100 yards or so, that's great. If you can only do it 50 or 60 because you hit some sort of land feature that you can't pass or that's too thick or whatever the case may be, do it to at least 100 yards, I would say, because that's the deer. A lot can happen in that 100 yards from last blood, and if you keep coming out and arcing back around, like I said, you got a greater chance of running into that blood trail. And especially, like I said, if that deer comes out here and circles back, you're going to cover this whole side. If it came out in this way and come back down, you're going to run into it somewhere in here. So not only is it really good for finding that deer that's come back around or circled, or finding continuous blood out in these areas past your 20 yards in here, the other reason is that by doing it this way, you're not gridding, you're not messing up that scent trail. So if you do end up calling in a dog, you're only crossing that deer. Let's just say the deer went this way. You're only crossing that trail, that scent trail, this one time like this. Instead of zigzagging all through and messing it up like that, you're only crossing it one time. So even though you're going to pick up some scent if you do cross that deer's trail and don't find any blood still, that dog, it might catch that scent that you drug away, and then it'll fade away, and then he's going to come back and get on the heavier scent. That deer's leaving scent with every step, and it's going to be stronger smelling to that dog than the scent that's on your boots. So by only crossing it one time perpendicularly to its trail, you're not going to mess it up by doing all this zigzagging and coming back and forth. So those are a couple of the main reasons why I do it this way, as far as deer coming back around and not messing up the scent trail if you're planning on calling in a dog. So now let's say you've done everything you can. You've went to last blood, picked a path, searched each path, nothing. You went out, you arced as far out as you could, or out to about 100 yards or so, and you still can't find any blood. So at this point, you've probably got, in my mind, you've got two different options. Option one, you don't call in a dog. If you don't have a dog available to you for whatever reason, not one in your area, etc., if you just don't want to, you don't want a dog messing up your property, whatever your reason may be for not calling one in, it's okay, by the way, if you don't want to call one in. Whatever the reason is, though, if you don't call a dog in, this is the point where I would just start gridding the property, and I would go back and think about the lay of the land, like I said before. Where's the water? Where's the thick stuff? Where's bedding? Where's the safest place on your property? And then I would start gridding. Get all the help you can. Bring your friends, bring your kids, bring your wife, whatever. Get all the help you can to come help you do this, because you're not worried about messing up the scent trail. You're not calling in a dog. And the more people you employ, you can spread them out from last blood, start gridding, crisscross each other, however you want to do it. Comb the area the best you can, and hope for the best with those land features in mind, like I said, like water, thick stuff. So gridding would be the option if you're not calling in a dog. Now, if you've done the picking of the paths, you've done the arcing, and you still haven't found anything, and you have a dog available to you, or you have used them before, whatever it is, you want to call in a dog, now is the time to do that. Because going out further and just randomly going through the woods, like I said, is going to mess up any scent that's left by that deer. And calling in a dog now is your last option as far as finding this animal. Now, guys, if you're going to call in a dog, it should be your very last resort in every situation when you're tracking or blood trailing an animal. I think they're a great tool. I've got friends that are dog trackers. I've seen these dogs in action myself. They are absolutely amazing at what they do and how they track these deer. But I still think that tracking and blood trailing is one of those skills that should be should still be had and be honed and practiced. And I don't think that people are taking tracking and blood trailing as seriously anymore because of dogs. And like I said, they're an amazing tool, but a lot of guys are using dogs and having that resource available to them as an excuse to make bad shots. And you know, they'll just, oh, it's facing me, and you know, whatever, I'll just shoot it in the shoulder and I'll call in a dog, or it's facing away from me. If you watch that shot placement video, I go into more detail about that. But guys are taking way more marginal shots because they have the dog as a backup if things go wrong. And I just don't think that that's right. I think that you should still be always trying to take the best shot you can on an animal, killing it the most effectively as you can, so that you don't have to track and you don't have to blood trail all day long, or do any of this, or call in a dog. I think it should be the very last resort. I don't want to preach about it too much, but again, try to practice being a better blood trailer and tracker before you call in a dog. So with all that being said, you call in a dog, it's a great resource, and these dogs are amazing. And how they track deer, they don't actually follow blood. There might be some scent left by blood that they pick up and whatnot, but that's not the main reason or the main way that they track. Dogs are tracking based on the scent that's left by the interdigital gland of the deer. And what that is if you've never seen it, and I'm no artist, by the way, so this is my rendering of a deer hoof and leg. But here you have the deer hoof, and right up in here at the bottom of the leg, right here, right by the hooves, right before the hooves, up on the leg, is almost like a hole in the animal, and that hole is where the interdigital gland is located. And interdigital gland is used for all kinds of things. They leave scent while they're walking, they leave scent in scrapes, they leave scent when there's danger, they leave scent in all kinds of ways, probably ways that we don't even know ourselves. But one of the things that happens when you shoot an animal, at least from my understanding and what I assume is happening, is that that animal is pumped full of adrenaline. It's releasing basically a pheromone that is telling other deer that there's danger, almost like it's white tail going up. So when it's running away, whether it's because it's injured, stressed, whatever the reason may be, it's releasing these chemicals through that interdigital gland, and that's how the dog is tracking that deer. So that's why a lot of times you lose blood, that dog can go right to the last blood, and it'll follow that trail right to the deer. And then even if it doesn't go right to the deer, a lot of times that deer or that dog will be tracking that deer. Let's just say it come up this way and took this way. That dog will be coming over here down that deer's interdigital gland scent trail, and say that deer might have come around and is dead right here. That dog a lot of times will hit right in here. It won't even follow the rest of the track around to the deer if it's circled or went straight this way or whatever. A lot of times it'll just stop, it put its nose up in the air, and it's smelling that dead animal, the scent from that animal. So they're a really good tool. The dogs track, that's how they track and what they're looking for and smelling for. And they're a really awesome resource to have. So in any event, you call in a dog, first thing that tracker is going to want to know is where you shot the animal. Where you shot the animal, again, refer to the shot placement video before, but where you shot that animal is going to tell that guy how that track is going to go, how his dog's going to perform, what the odds are of finding that animal. You know, if you hit the deer in the spine, if you hit it in the shoulder, guts, hindquarters, leg, neck, whatever it is, be honest about where you hit the animal. And he's also going to want to know if you tracked the animal. And this is another reason why I do things this way, because a lot of times, if you're going to call in a dog regardless, don't even track. Don't even try to come find last blood. If you're going to call in a dog and you know you are, do not even bother. Just don't track, call the guy, get him there, take him to where you shot the animal, and the dog will take care of the rest. But if you do track, and this is why I do it this way, if you do track the animal, you try to find it yourself first. This is why I'm doing it this way, because that animal, he's going to want to know, did you track it? So, and why he's asking that is because if you went out and tried tracking and you're just zigzagging all around and walking all over the place, you've completely destroyed that scent trail, probably, and that dog's going to have a lot harder time finding that animal because he's going to be so confused on all that scent left that you drug out everywhere and spread out across the whole landscape. So he's going to want to know where you hit it, if you've tracked it, and he's going to want to know everything about the shot that you can tell him. Be honest about it. Give every detail you can. Tell him everything that you remember. Give him an idea of the lay of the land. Tell him where water is. He's going to want to know all these things. It's going to help him put a picture together to be able to, he knows what his dog can do. So he's going to put this big picture together, and it's going to help him determine how to proceed, you know, what to do, tell him how long it's been since the shot, every detail, everything you can remember, be honest about it, and tell him all about it. So that's very important. It'll help out the dog track, just like if you were tracking it yourself. So like I said before, the dogs are very effective. These things, they're trained to do this. They're amazing animals. Like I said, they can follow that interdigital scent. They can follow the smell of the dead animal, a lot of things, and they can differentiate from other deer and other animals between the two based on what they're smelling left from that interdigital gland. So the best thing to do, get them out there, show them where you shot the deer, let them take over from there, or where you were at last blood. Let them take over from there and kind of stay back. Let the dog do its job. That dog tracker's done this 100 times probably, and he'll know what his dog's telling him just by watching what he does. Using the dog is a great tool, and you should pay them for it. Whether they're donation only or whether they charge, you should pay them well. A couple years back, Tommy shot a buck out on some public land out here, and we lost the blood trail, hit him in the liver. We lost the blood trail, so we stopped right at last blood, did not try to go find that deer. It was a nice buck, so we called the dog. We called my buddy that's a dog tracker. He came over the next morning, took off from that last blood, went and followed that trail, no blood at all, found that deer within 10 minutes, not even probably. So they're well worth their weight in gold. And even if you don't find the animal, I actually had one 4 years ago now that I used that we didn't even find the deer. And I made a bad shot, called the dog in. We tracked for about 4 hours going through nasty marshes. The deer was hopping islands out in this cattail marsh, and we never found the deer. And it got to the point the dog was still trying to track, but physically the dog and the gentleman that was providing the service to me couldn't go any further. So he said, I can't go any further. The dog's tired, whatever. So we backed out, and I still paid that man $100 for his time. So pay them well. They're well worth their weight in gold, especially if they're finding the trophy that you can't find yourself. So think about it like that. Pay them what they deserve, whether it's donation or if they charge. Even if they charge and they find your animal, give them a tip. They're well worth it. They're taking time out of their life to come help you find your deer. Pay them like the best waiter you've ever had. So now, if you've exhausted all these efforts, you brought in the dog can't find the deer for whatever reason, there's two things that are happening. One, either the deer's still alive and well, and you're never going to find it. It'll probably live from its wounds. Or two, it's dead, and you might have to come back the next day and continue your search, grid every area that you can. I mean, I know a lot of guys will just give up and say, you know, that deer's still alive or whatever, but I mean, if it's a nice buck and you want to find that animal, might as well come back and give it another shot. So at that point, you'd come back, do your best to find those thick areas, the areas by water, grid it as best you can, bring any help that you can bring, and you want to look for other signs of scavengers like crows, vultures, eagles, coyotes. You want to look for any of that, because a lot of times you can find a dead animal based on crows circling up in the air, you know, listening for coyotes, stuff like that. So if you exhaust the dog and can't find it, that's always an option as well, or the deer's alive and you might get a chance at it another day. So guys, the last thing I want to leave you with about the dogs and dog tracking is this picture that a dog tracker put together a couple years ago. And I showed it in the shot placement video, but I think it's an important visual representation for you guys to look at as far as dog tracking and the success rates and based on where the deer was hit. And what he did was he put tags on this picture of this deer where the deer that he was tracking were shot. And this tells you what kind of a marginal hit they had, or how, you know, if they found the animal, if they confirmed the animal alive, not found, etc. So you can, as you can see there, all the red tacks are where they found the animal, and that it was a lethal hit. And the other ones weren't so lethal. And we don't know the context of every one of these stories, but you know, it's just a good indicator for you guys as far as shot placement, and which leads right into blood trailing, how, on the importance of making a good shot and making sure that you're hitting organs that are vital and lessening your odds of even having to track that animal, let alone calling a dog. So this picture, I thought it would be valuable for you guys to show you guys again, and I hope you learned something from this. All right, guys, so to further help you guys out, I put together this chart, and this was all out of my own mind. I didn't copy anybody. I didn't try to rip anybody off. So if anything similar that's like this is out there, that's my fault, my bad. I didn't research this. I just thought of it, and I thought it might help you guys, give you another different visual to look at to help you with blood trailing and what to look for and all that. So down here, what this triangle represents, it's almost kind of like the food pyramid, but what it represents is you've got heart, arterial, and lung shots down here, and what it represents is the minimum time before you start tracking those kinds of shot deer. So a liver shot up here will be 4 hours or more, 10 hours or more for gut shots, and it also represents the expected amount of tracking that you have that you can expect to do based on where you hit the animal. So here you've got a real short time frame, real small window where you probably will find that animal within 100 yards or so of where you shot it. Liver could be within 100 yards or within 300, depending on if the deer walks away, how far it runs, if you push it, etc. But generally, you'll have a liver shot deer will die pretty close to within 200 or 300 yards of where you shot it in most cases, especially if it's not pushed. And then up here you have gut shot deer where if you don't push it, it may be down in here into the liver area as far as distance that it traveled, but a lot of times your search area is going to be a lot bigger. So how you can kind of look at this is I envision just myself down here, and I'm going to start tracking, and the further I go this way, longer my track job, the bigger the area as you go out, the bigger the area that you're going to have to expect to track. Up here, there's other non-lethal hits, and those are going to be your shoulder shot deer, your no man's land, or you just hit above the spine deer, your ham shot deer that didn't hit any arteries. So all those deer up here that are either going to die further away out of your zone of searching, or they're not going to die at all. They're going to be just fine. Those are what these are, and I put it in a small frame up here because by that time you've probably exhausted all your options anyway, and either you're not going to find that deer or it's going to live. So, but like I said, you go start walking, this imaginary walking this way, you're going to wait a minimum of an hour for these hits. You can expect to find it within 100 yards. Liver shot deer, you're waiting for 4 hours, so your wait time is increased, and then you can expect it to be a little bit further as far as your search area. That's why this area is a little bit bigger. Then once you get up here to your gut shot deer, you're going to be 10 hours minimum, and you could have a very large search area because that animal has a lot more time to cover more ground, especially if you push it, if it isn't hit that lethally as far as where it's hit, if it's a combination shot like a liver gut shot, single lung liver gut shot, straight intestines, all these factors are combined or singular to give you that expanded range that you can expect with a gut shot deer. And then up here, like I said, your non-lethal hit shots, your deer that are going to run further and die that you're not going to find or are going to live. So this is just another way for you guys to look at things. I hope it helps you. Hope you find some value out of it. Another way to look at it. Any way that you can look at these things, every angle can help. So that's what I'm trying to do. And again, guys, just like in the shot placement video, all the things in this video they're not conclusive at all. They're very dependent on a lot of factors, a lot of things, your equipment, the situation, the angle of the deer, organs that you hit. There's a ton of variables, so none of the things in this video are conclusive, but they are a very good starting point and a very good way to track the animal to have the best odds of finding it. And whether you're using a dog, whether you're tracking it yourself, using friends, whatever the case may be, if you follow the steps in this video, you're going to have better odds and better success at finding your deer. So guys, with that, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you found any value in this video at all, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment down below. Let me know how I'm doing. Share this with your friends. I know a lot of people could use this information, so I hope it helps you enough to make you want to share it. And as always, we'll see you guys all in the next video.